I can tell you the exact moment that I was sold on Alex Hirsch's Gravity Falls as a show. It's this moment right here.
Grappling hook!
Anything can be made better by adding a grappling hook. Maybe that's what my intro's missing. Not What He Seems is the 11th episode of the second season of Gravity Falls, and is probably my favorite episode, and I would also say that it's the best. It's filled with amazing character moments, reveals to characters that the audience has been waiting to see, and a real emotional heart that leads into the biggest reveal of the show thus far. I would also call it the biggest turning point of the series as it begins to ramp up into the show's 3-part finale after this. But there will also still be low-stakes episodes before then, so I could be wrong. I'm not, though, as this episode has changes that affect the rest of the series except for one episode, but that episode already seems out of place, and the only reason I don't think it is because lore in Journal 3 that I read on the wiki, and no one would ever lie on a fan wiki. Not What He Seems opens on Stan working on the machine that's been teased throughout the end of the first season and into the second. He talks about how he doesn't care how dangerous it is, and then he learns about the gravitational anomalies that might happen. The next day, Stan and the twins set off some fireworks on the roof of the Mystery Shack, and Stan acts like he's going to tell them something, but doesn't, before walking off and mentioning to himself how he has to tell them today. He then gets targeted by a sniper and tackled by a government agent. Dipper and Mabel then learn that it's Agent Powers and Trigger who are taking Stan away because he's suspected of stealing toxic waste, which, why are they mad? What are they going to do with the toxic waste? Then they tell Dipper and Mabel they'll be going to child services, which makes even less sense in the previous sentence because their parents are still alive and well. I suppose they don't know that, but their parents are fine. Dipper and Mabel then force a man to crash his company vehicle and head back to the shack to watch the security tapes. Meanwhile, Stan gets his one phone call and tells Seuss to guard the vending machine with his life. Dipper and Mabel get back to the Mystery Shack, and Chekhov's grappling hook pays off again as they sneak into the attic and then into Stan's office where he keeps the security tapes. They find out that, yeah, he definitely stole that toxic waste, and then they find a box of fake IDs and a newspaper clipping along with the headline, "Stan Pine's Dead," with a caption on a photo of Stan calling him an unnamed grifter. Mabel and Dipper, who are full of doubts about Stan by this point, then find the code to the vending machine, and then we get the scariest shot in the show. That's undebatable. Meanwhile, Stan escapes government custody using a gravitational anomaly and then tells a cab driver to drive away from the Mystery Shack. The government forces leave the Mystery Shack to try and find Stan, which clears the way to the vending machine where Seuss and the twins have a short comedic confrontation before they all find the secret lab and the 2 other journals. Dipper's furious at Stan for hiding the other 2, and they all learn that if the machine is assembled, the whole universe could be destroyed. They decide they need to shut down the machine. However, right before they're able to push the override button, Stan appears in the doorway and begs them not to push it and tells them that he'll explain everything. At this point, a gravitational anomaly occurs, and everyone is separated from the button except Mabel, who is unsure on what to do. Stan begs Mabel not to push the button, asking if she really thinks he's a bad guy. Mabel, crying, decides to trust him and floats away from the button, which lets the machine activate. After the machine activates, an explosion occurs and the gravitational anomaly stops. A man steps out of the portal, and he's revealed to be the author of the journals, the Six-Fingered Man. He lowers his hood, and a second reveal hits that he is Stan's twin brother. Seuss faints on command, and the end credits show Stan and his brother Ford quietly swinging on Glass Shard Beach. This was the mid-season finale, and also one of the 4 episodes that Shion Takeuchi, creator of Inside Job, wrote on. So you know it's a banger. I know I don't need to explain why this episode rocks. It's the highest rated episode on IMDb. It's tied with Weirdmageddon Part 3, but I'm going to anyway. This isn't the first appearance of Agents Power and Trigger, but it's the first time they've really done anything. They've mostly been set up throughout the season, and so seeing them really go to work, as it were, is really good payoff for the setup that's been happening throughout the season. But it also helps to set up the scale and the stakes moving forward. People outside of Gravity Falls are now noticing what's happening. It's not just people brushing it off as, oh, our town's just weird. The actions taken by the characters, namely Stan in this episode, are causing people to notice what's going on. This sets the stakes of this episode and the rest of the season to be much higher than any previous episode, because we don't know if what happens here will affect everything moving forward. Apart from just the government guys, however, so many other questions are being raised in this episode, namely ones about Stan. The title, Not What He Seems, is probably the best title of any of these episodes for many reasons, one of which is just the pertinence of the title, but another is the mysteriosity of it, a word I just made up and will plan to use constantly from now on. The audience doesn't really know who it applies to going in, but it's quickly hinted at that it's about Stan, and the questions about who Stan are come to even greater importance when Dipper and Mabel find the box of fake IDs and newspaper clippings. Suddenly, the audience isn't sure of Stan's true nature or even his true name. Even though you don't think the show would pull a rug of this scale from beneath you, you aren't sure and everything seems unstable, and then we get to this scene.
I wanted to say that you're gonna hear some bad things about me, and some of them are true. But trust me, everything I've worked for, everything I care about, it's all for this family.
Mabel, what if he's lying? This thing could destroy the universe. Listen to your head.
Look into my eyes, Mabel. You really think I'm a bad guy?
He's lying. Shut it down now.
Mabel, please.
This is the best scene in the show. I would go as far as to say these are the best lines in the show. As much as the whole show leads up to Weirdmageddon, obviously, I would argue that the show even more leads up to this moment. Throughout the show, we've seen that Stan is an unscrupulous guy, and we'll see even more in the next episode how he's done a lot to get ahead in his life. But it all leads up to this moment, a moment fully out of his control, where everything he's worked for since his brother's disappearance might go away in an instant, and he has to trust someone again. And in a rare moment of complete and total honesty, he confesses that a lot of what they've heard about him is true, but that everything he's done up to this moment has been for his family. It's a statement of complete truth, but we don't know just how true it is until... I've seen a lot of twist reveal. I've seen good, and I've seen both the Now You See Me movies, but few have been as jaw-dropping and impactful as this. The foreshadowing is so good that you really only notice it once it's been revealed, though that didn't even come close to stopping people online from theorizing. Side note, I didn't watch Gravity Falls as it was coming out for a variety of reasons, but going through old theory videos and websites for both this video and just to see what it was like when the show was coming out, the Gravity Falls fandom kind of scares me. The number of things they got right was actually insane. They also got a lot wrong. Kean Carlisle has a great video on that, link in the description, but they got so much right, and it's a credit to both them and the writers and Alex Hirsch for putting so much into this. Anyway, the signs that Stan had a brother were all there, but as a more casual watcher who wasn't analyzing every frame, I didn't see it coming. I also somehow avoided it being spoiled. I have no idea how. This reveal has been talked about at length by tons of people online. You don't need another guy telling you, oh, it's a good reveal. Obviously it's good. But what makes it so good, and what enhances it so much, is the lead up in this episode specifically. This episode flips everything you thought you knew about Gravity Falls on its head and sets up the final arcs of the show perfectly. The title of this video is something along the lines of why Not What He Seems is the greatest episode of TV to air maybe ever. And while I can say that because The Siege of Mandalore never technically aired on television, there's no exaggeration when I say this episode is a perfect 10 out of 10. And in the end credits, we cut to the quiet moment where you can reflect on what you just watched and get hyped for what's coming next. Thanks for watching. I will see you in an undetermined amount of time.